Michael woke in his office with copper in his mouth and a stranger's voice echoing. Pulse weak. The paramedics had stabilized him orthostatic hypotension from medication, imbalance, dehydration, and not eating. But someone had known exactly what to do first. When he opened his eyes, the young woman in gray was still there quietly briefing the medical team. She wouldn't meet anyone's gaze, but her hands had been steady. "Who are you?" Michael managed. Gray-green eyes old beyond their years. "Just someone cleaning the lobby, sir. You had a blood pressure drop. I studied nursing for a year." Then she was gone. The next morning, Daniel Sterling stood over him with coffee and disappointment. "You collapsed in the lobby, in front of guests. This can't keep happening." Who was she? The woman who helped. Does it matter? Yes. Daniel's research was thorough. Janelle Carter, 27. Housekeeping staff 18 months. Before that 3 part-time jobs. Before that 1-year nursing school. Dropped out. No family. Lives alone. She's nobody, Michael. Nobody. The word hung heavy. I want to thank her. When Janelle arrived at his office, she looked like she wanted to disappear. Michael stood uncomfortable with the power dynamic. "You saved my life." "You don't need to, sir. I was just doing what anyone would do." "No one else did. The lobby wasn't empty. You were the only one who moved." Pain flickered across her face. "Sometimes you just know what to do, even when you don't want to." "Why did you quit nursing?" Her hands twisted. "My mother got sick. Someone had to care for her, pay bills. Medical school doesn't pause for life, Mr. Reed." After she left, Daniel appeared. "That woman saved you, hard to believe." Mrs. Helen's voice drifted from the hallway. "Sometimes the person who saves you doesn't need a business card, Daniel." In the days that followed, Michael found himself drawn back to that same couch, and inevitably Janelle would appear, never approaching, just present, moving quietly with her cart, keeping distance but somehow always nearby. One evening Michael spoke into the silence. "Why didn't you say anything when you helped me?" Janelle paused. "Because sometimes people need silence more than words." The observation landed deep. Everyone talked at him advice, solutions, platitudes. But this shy girl just existed nearby. No expectations, just quiet presence. From that night on, Michael talked aloud in the lobby. About grace, about insomnia, about guilt. He didn't expect answers. But speaking into that accepting silence felt honest. One night, for the first time in 2 years, Michael Reed cried. Silently. While a woman he barely knew cleaned 10 feet away and pretended not to notice. Mrs. Helen watched this dance from her window. She'd lost her son 15 years ago. She recognized shared trauma. These two broken people were speaking it fluently. "They're healing each other," Dr. Lewis observed, appearing beside her. He was Michael's physician who'd known Grace and refused to let Michael self-destruct. "They don't know it yet," Mrs. Helen murmured. "But yes." But neither knew what Janelle carried. 3 days earlier, while cleaning Michael's office, she'd seen a framed certificate. Grace Eleanor Reed, MD, Patient Advocacy Recognition. From Mercy General Hospital. 2 years ago. The same hospital where Janelle had been a first-year intern. Where she'd noticed medication discrepancies. Where she'd filed an anonymous report triggering an investigation into Dr. Carlson's errors. The investigation that came too late to save Grace Reed. She'd searched old articles that night, found the settlement. 3 preventable deaths, Grace Reed among them. Janelle had been the whistleblower who started it all. She'd saved the man whose world she'd helped destroy. And he had no idea. The lobby became their sanctuary, night after night. Sometimes he'd talk, sometimes just silence. The strangest friendship either had known, built on what wasn't said. One evening Michael asked, "Do you believe people can be saved?" Janelle's hands stilled. "From what?" "From themselves," Long silence. I think sometimes we can only be present while they decide if they want to save themselves. Michael looked at her fully. Is that what you're doing? I'm just doing my job, Mr. Reed. No, you're doing something that matters more. I used to think there was no reason to live, but you just sit here. When I talk, you listen, and somehow I don't feel useless anymore. Janelle's eyes glistened. She wanted to confess, but the words stuck, held back by certainty that truth would shatter this fragile healing. Mrs. Helen walked past, catching Janelle's anguish. Kindness doesn't always need explaining, just timing. Later, Dr. Lewis found Michael in the lobby looking more alive than he'd seen in months. You look better. I feel better. Strange, isn't it? Michael glanced toward Janelle. All the therapy medication advice, but it was this shy girl who figured out I didn't need fixing. I just needed someone to sit with me while I was broken. Dr. Lewis nodded. Some people heal without wearing a white coat. But while Michael healed, Daniel Sterling unraveled. He'd spent 2 years managing Michael's grief, controlling the narrative, protecting Harrington Group's reputation. He'd negotiated the quiet hospital settlement, ensured investigation results never made headlines, protected Michael from the full truth about Grace's preventable death. And now this nobody janitor was undoing it all. Daniel watched Michael actually laugh with Janelle. Watched his boss become human again. Watched the dangerous thing that happens when broken people heal together. He told himself he was protecting Michael, that digging into Janelle's background was due diligence. But really, Daniel was afraid that if Michael healed completely, he'd ask questions again. About the hospital, the settlement, why Daniel had kept things so quiet. The background check went deep. Employment, education, clinical rotations. And there it was. Nursing student J.C. Anonymous whistleblower, October 2022. Janelle Carter. She'd seen the errors. Reported Dr. Carlson. Triggered the investigation Daniel had buried. Daniel stared at documents that made his world feel like sand. But there was more. 3 people had filed concerns about Dr. Carlson within 2 weeks in October 2022. All logged non-urgent. The hospital's risk management team assessed on November 12, 2022, insufficient evidence to warrant immediate intervention. Grace Reed's surgery was November 30, 2022. The hospital had known, had warnings from 3 sources including Janelle. They'd assessed the risk, decided it wasn't urgent enough. Janelle Carter hadn't caused Grace's death. Hospital bureaucracy had. But she'd been part of the chain who tried and failed. And Daniel had spent 2 years ensuring Michael never knew. Daniel had a choice. Delete the files, let Michael heal, let the past stay buried, or protect himself. Fear won. The email was anonymous, sent at 3 a.m. when Michael's insomnia was worst. Subject: the woman in your lobby you deserve to know. Hospital records, employment histories, the whistleblower report, timeline showing the investigation and Grace's death. Michael read it in the dark, Grace's photograph watching. Read until words blurred. Until rage flooded back to fill hollow spaces where healing had begun. Janelle had been there. Filed the report that exposed negligence. Never said a word. Let him talk about Grace, about loss, about guilt, knowing she was connected to the worst day of his life. At dawn, Michael called Daniel. Did you know about this? Carefully neutral. About what? Don't. How long have you known? A few days. Michael, I wasn't sure if telling you would help. She lied to me. She withheld information. Every time she sat with you, she knew. She knew she was part of what happened. Michael's grip threatened to crack the phone. Get her to my office, now. He found Janelle at 6:30 refilling supplies. When she saw his face, she went still. My office, now. The walk felt like a funeral march. In his office, Michael threw his phone on the desk, email displayed. Explain this. Janelle looked and felt the world tilt. Mr. Reed. No. You were there. At the hospital. You filed the report about Carlson. You're connected to the investigation. And you never said a word. I tried to. You tried. His voice cracked with rage and betrayal. You sat beside me for weeks, listened to me talk about my wife, my guilt, and you knew you were part of what happened. That's not fair. Her voice rose for the first time. I saw medication errors. I reported them. I did everything I was supposed to, but I was too late. The hospital was too slow. The system failed, and by the time anyone listened, your wife was already... Her voice broke. I tried to save people. I just wasn't fast enough. The words hung raw and bleeding. Michael stared at this trembling woman, seeing past rage to guilt mirroring his own. But betrayal was too fresh. You should have told me. When you knew who I was. When we talked. Janelle's laugh was broken. Would you have let me stay? Would you have let me near you? Tears streamed. I saved your life that night, and I'd do it again. Even knowing you'd hate me. Because some people deserve to live even when they can't see it. Get out. His voice flat empty. Mr. Reed, please. I said get out. Janelle left. Behind her, Michael crumpled into his chair, pressing palms against his eyes as 3 months of healing shattered like glass. Mrs. Helen found Janelle sobbing in the locker room. The older woman just sat and held her while she broke, whispering, I couldn't save his wife. I can't save him from hating me. I can't save anyone. When the person who tried to save lives gets blamed for not saving them fast enough, who's really responsible, the whistleblower who spoke up or the system that refused to listen? For 3 days, Michael didn't leave his penthouse. The rage curdled into confusion. Doubt. Something didn't add up. Janelle filed a report about errors. The investigation exposed Carlson's negligence. But Grace died before it concluded. Which meant Michael did what he should have done 2 years ago, demanded answers. The call to mercy general was terse. I want the complete timeline of the Carlson investigation. Everything. Not summaries. Everything. Mr. Reed, the settlement included confidentiality. I don't care. You'll send those records or I'll pursue legal action. Your choice. Records arrived by courier next morning. Michael spread them across his table and read. Really read. 3 people filed concerns about Dr. Carlson in October 2022. A pharmacist noting dosage irregularities, a senior nurse flagging post-op complications, and nursing student JC reporting systematic errors. All within 2 weeks. All rooted to risk management. November 12, 2022. Preliminary review concluded insufficient evidence to warrant immediate disciplinary action. Recommend continued monitoring and Q1 2023 assessment. Grace's surgery was November 30, 2022. 18 days after the hospital decided Carlson wasn't urgent. Michael's hands trembled. The Risk Management Committee had assessed based on liability exposure, not patient safety. They determined Carlson's errors didn't represent immediate catastrophic threat, requiring emergency intervention. Cost-benefit analysis. Grace Reed's life was acceptable risk. Janelle hadn't been too slow. The hospital actively chose not to act fast enough. She'd been a first-year intern, trying to save people through proper channels, and the institution buried her concerns beneath bureaucracy. Michael felt something shift, but one piece still didn't make sense. He called Daniel. Tell me about the settlement. Exactly what you negotiated. Too long a pause. Standard terms. Compensation. Confidential resolution. What aren't you telling me? Nothing. I protected you. Made sure you didn't endure a public trial while grieving. Your job was to get me answers. Instead, you kept things quiet. Dangerously soft. Why was protecting the hospital more important than exposing what they did? Silence stretched. Because if the full investigation became public, it wouldn't just harm the hospital. It would have destroyed you. Every outlet would run stories about preventable deaths. Your wife's name attached to scandal. I gave you mercy of privacy. You buried the truth. Realization hit like a blow. You actively suppressed information. Made sure I never knew there'd been multiple warnings. That people tried to stop this. I did what was necessary. You let me think it was bad luck. You let me believe for 2 years Grace's death was unavoidable, when the truth was she died because institutions protect themselves and you were part of that protection. I was protecting you. No, you were protecting yourself, protecting Harrington Group's relationship with Mercy General, your own career. What Michael didn't know, Daniel had received consulting fees from the hospital's insurance company payments, creating undisclosed conflict of interest. You're fired. Clear out today. Michael, you're not thinking. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in 2 years. Get out of my company. Out of my life. Michael hung up, surrounded by documents rewriting his understanding. But one more call remained. Mrs. Helen answered. Mr. Reed, I wondered when you'd call. Is she okay? No, but she will be. Stronger than you gave her credit for. I need to see her. Tell her I'm sorry. That I understand now. That she tried to save people and the system failed her. Sorry's a start. Gentle but firm. But that girl's been invisible her whole life. If you're going to see her, be ready to actually look. I will. I promise. Then I'll give you her address. But Mr. Reed, if you hurt her again, you'll answer to me. That evening, Michael stood before a worn building, climbed 4 flights, elevator broken, and knocked on 4B 3 times. When Janelle opened the door, red-eyed from crying, she looked smaller. She saw him, and her expression cycled through shock, fear, resignation. I'm sorry, Michael said before she could speak. I'm so sorry. He told her everything. Hospital records, risk management's decision. How she hadn't been too slow, the institution actively chose not to act. You tried to save people, Janelle. You saw something wrong and reported it, terrified. And the system failed, not you. Her hand went to her mouth, tears falling. I've spent 2 years believing Grace's death was inevitable, random. But it wasn't. It was preventable. The people who could have prevented it chose bureaucracy over lives. You weren't one of them. You were the one who tried. But I could have, barely a whisper. If I'd been braver, gone to the medical board. If you'd done that, you'd have been dismissed, blacklisted, career destroyed before it started. He stepped closer. You were 25. You did everything right. That it wasn't enough isn't your fault. It's the fault of everyone with more power who chose not to use it. The dam broke. Janelle crumpled, and Michael caught her holding this woman carrying impossible guilt. I see her sometimes, Janelle sobbed. Your wife, in my dreams. I imagine if I'd pushed harder. I know. His tears fell. I see her too. We both carry the same ghost, and I'm so tired of carrying her alone. They stood in that tiny apartment while the city continued outside. Inside, 2 people who believed they were too broken discovered what Mrs. Helen had known. Sometimes the only way to survive impossible guilt is carrying it together. I shouldn't have sent you away. You'd been saving my life long before that night, just by being present. You taught me that sometimes healing looks like sitting in silence with someone who understands. Sometimes you just carry it together. Janelle looked up with those old, sad eyes. I don't know how to be around you without feeling like I'm a reminder of the worst thing. You are a reminder. Steady now. But not how you think. You remind me there are people who care when they don't have to. Who act when it's terrifying. Grace was like that. She became a doctor because she couldn't stand people suffering. You're like that too. Maybe part of how I honor Grace is recognizing that courage when I see it. I don't want you to carry her alone either, Janelle whispered. Michael took her hands gently. Then let's carry her together, both of us. No more secrets, no more guilt over what we couldn't control. Just forward. I don't know what that looks like. Neither do I. But we figure it out one moment at a time, together. For the first time since Truth came out, Janelle smiled, tentative, fragile, real. When the architecture of lies collapses, two people built from broken pieces discover healing isn't about forgetting. It's about learning to carry it together. The confrontation with Daniel happened 2 days later. Michael had gathered evidence, consulted lawyers, prepared for battle. Daniel arrived, immaculate, expensive suit, calculated confidence, but something fragile beneath. Sit down, Daniel. Michael, if this is about the young woman, her name is Janelle. Use it. Steel voice. This is about you, what you've been hiding. Michael spread documents across his desk. Hospital records, settlement agreements, financial records showing payments from Mercy General's insurance to a consulting firm Daniel partially owned. You were paid. By the hospital's carrier. Paid to keep the settlement quiet. You weren't my advocate, Daniel. You represented their interests as much as mine. Daniel went pale. Michael, it wasn't. Then what? Explain how you took money from people responsible for my wife's death while pretending to protect me. I was trying to spare you. Composure cracked. You were falling apart. Someone had to be rational. Make sure you didn't destroy everything you and Grace built. So you decided what I could handle, what truths I deserved. Yes, he stood. Because you weren't capable. You were drowning. I threw you a lifeline. The settlement was generous, protected your privacy. And the money, the consulting fees, jaw tight. I facilitated a settlement benefiting everyone. That I was compensated doesn't negate. You had conflict of interest. Every decision, every advice, I'll never know if it was in my interest or theirs. Voice dropped. And when I finally started healing, found someone who understood, you tried to destroy that too. You sent that email knowing it would hurt me. Why? Suffocating silence. Daniel turned away. When he spoke, voice hollow. Because if you healed, you'd ask questions. You'd discover what I'd done. Everything I'd built would collapse. Bitter laugh. I told myself I was protecting you, but really protecting myself. When that shy girl started making you human again, I panicked. Thought if I could drive her away, everything would go back. Controlled. Safe. Safe for you, not for me. Daniel turned back, genuine remorse showing. I'm sorry. Truly. I convinced myself I was doing right. But I was wrong. For what it's worth, Janelle is good for you. She sees you like no one else. She's not nobody, Michael said quietly. That's the problem. You measured people by titles so long you forgot to see their worth. Janelle tried to save my wife. She saved my life. She's been saving my soul ever since. Daniel nodded slowly. What happens now? Now you're terminated. Immediately. I'm reporting your conflict to the state bar. Voice softened slightly. Not revenge. Because the cover-up ends now. The truth about what happened to Grace is going public. I'm reopening the case. The media attention will be intense. Maybe. But I'll be standing in truth instead of drowning in comfortable lies. After Daniel left, Michael sat alone and felt 2 years of false narrative finally lift. Truth was uglier than the lie, but also freeing. He called Janelle. I need to ask something. Would you be willing to go public about what you saw? The report you filed. Long silence. Then, if it helps prevent this happening to someone else. Yes. It won't be easy. The hospital will try to discredit you. I know. Steady voice. But some things are worth fighting for. Your wife was worth fighting for. Michael felt something warm unfold. We'll do it together. You and me. Together, Janelle echoed. The lawsuit was filed 2 weeks later. Michael Reed publicly accused Mercy General of institutional negligence resulting in his wife's preventable death, demanding full public investigation into patient safety protocols. Media descended. But Michael was ready. not alone. At the press conference, Janelle stood beside him, no longer in janitor's uniform, but professional attire Mrs. Helen had helped choose. Voice trembling, she described filing that report as first-year intern. How she'd seen warning signs followed proper channels. How 3 people flagged the same doctor's practices. How the hospital assessed risk and decided it wasn't urgent. And how 18 days later Grace Reed died on that same doctor's table. The story exploded. Medical safety advocates seized it. Other patients came forward with similar stories. Pressure became unbearable. Within 6 weeks, Mercy General agreed to comprehensive settlement, including not just compensation but reforms. Mandatory immediate review of all safety reports. External oversight. Whistleblower protection. Public acknowledgement that Grace Reed's death had been preventable. But Michael insisted on one more condition. The hospital would fund a new patient safety initiative in Grace's name, ensuring reports from nurses, interns, frontline workers would be treated with same urgency as senior physician concerns, valuing observations of people spending most time with patients. The Grace Reed Patient Advocacy Program, ensuring that next time someone like Janelle saw warning signs and spoke up, people would actually listen. This inspirational outcome transformed not just their lives, but potentially saved countless others, proving even the quietest voices can create the loudest change when someone finally listens. When truth breaks through lies, justice becomes possible, not just for those lost, but for all who might still be saved. 3 months after settlement, the Harrington Hotel lobby underwent quiet renovations. The seating area where Michael nearly died and Janelle saved him was redesigned. Velvet couches replaced with something warmer, more inviting. Furniture that said people matter more than prestige. On the wall, a simple bronze plaque. Grace and Janelle Lounge, in honor of those who save lives by caring when no one's watching. Janelle stood beside Michael, tears in her eyes. She would have liked you, Michael said quietly. Grace always said the best doctors became nurses first. Learn to see people before patients. I'm going back to nursing school. Mrs. Helen helped me apply for scholarships. I know. I wrote one of your recommendation letters. At her surprise, he smiled. Mrs. Helen asked. She said you needed someone who understood trying again after the world tells you failed. I didn't fail. No. But you thought you did. Like I thought I failed Grace. We both learned the difference between failing and being failed by circumstances beyond control. Janelle turned to him. The settlement, the patient safety program, you didn't have to do all that. Yes, I did. Grace died trying to make healthcare better. Least I can do is make sure her death actually changes something. He paused. And I made sure the settlement included something else. A scholarship fund for healthcare workers who've left training due to financial hardship. Now maybe others won't have to make that choice. The Grace Reed Whistleblower Protection Fund. Janelle whispered, reading materials. Michael, you tried to save people, Janelle, including me, multiple times. This is me making sure you and people like you can keep doing that without being punished for caring too much. Across the lounge, Mrs. Helen watched with satisfaction. Dr. Lewis stood beside her, both wearing expressions of people who'd witnessed something truly heartwarming unfold. They're going to be okay, Dr. Lewis observed. Better than okay, Mrs. Helen replied. They're going to be the kind of okay that helps other people believe in okay again. In the lounge, Michael and Janelle sat on one of the new couches, soft fabric in warm gray. Around them, guests moved through, unaware of the quiet revolution that had unfolded. The CEO who nearly died here. The shy girl who saved him. 2 broken people who learned that sometimes the greatest courage is simply being present while someone else learns to breathe again. 1 year later, the lobby hosted a different gathering. Launch of the Silent Hands Foundation. Michael's initiative supporting janitors, nurses, home health aides, and all invisible caregivers who hold the world together while rarely being acknowledged. Mrs. Helen stood at the podium reading Janelle's letter. We don't have to speak loudly to be heard. We just need to be quiet enough to feel, to notice, to care when no one's watching. Because that's where real change begins, not in boardrooms or headlines, but in silent moments when one person decides another person's life is worth fighting for. The crowd applauded. Michael looked across and found Janelle no longer in janitor's uniform, but in scrubs. Medical assistant trainee, her badge read. She was kneeling beside an elderly guest who'd dropped something, helping retrieve it with the same gentle care she'd shown Michael that night. The parallel wasn't lost on anyone there from the beginning. Mrs. Helen caught Michael's eye and smiled. Some circles closed perfectly. Later, Michael found Janelle standing before Grace's photograph, now displayed prominently, with information about the Patient Safety Initiative. "Thank you," Janelle said softly, "for letting her be proud of us, both of us." "She would be," Michael replied. "You're doing what she always wanted, making sure people are seen, that they matter." Janelle turned to him, smile different now, no longer shadowed by guilt, no longer diminished by believing she wasn't enough. "We're doing it," she corrected. "Together." Michael took her hand, no longer employer and employee, but two people who'd walked through fire together and discovered they were both made of the same resilient material. "Together," he agreed. Outside, the city continued its relentless rhythm. Inside the Grace and Janelle lounge, two people who'd once believed they were too broken to be whole had built something beautiful from their shared scars, not despite their pain, but because they'd learned to transform it into purpose.